Hi, Sudhir. Jennifer here. I'd like to give you some feedback on your Task 2 essay submission. And I see this is your very first submission, so welcome to IELTS Advantage and good luck with your preparation. So our feedback here at IELTS Advantage takes the form of key mistakes. And the reason for that is because if you focus on those, that's what can help you to make the best possible progress. So you can use this form to note down the key mistakes, and then you can update your progress record by clicking here. So the feedback will focus on the 4 criteria that you'll be judged on in your IELTS exam, and you'll also be given an overall score. All right, so first of all, this is the question that you answered, and it's a two-part question. So in terms of task response, this is a little bit of a tricky question, and it has tricked you a little bit as well. The reason that it's a bit tricky is because people often focus on the technology changing existing relationships, not affecting the types of relationships people make. So when we speak about types of relationships, we would want to speak about different kinds of relationships that people have now. And that's something that hasn't come up in your essay. Here, you've spoken about how technology creates a closer relationship to existing people. Um, and then you go on to speak about materialism and also to just whether or not you think it's a positive or negative idea. So if we have a look at the sample answer, the sample answer says people can form a relationship with someone they've never met before in a country they've never been to through the internet. So that's speaking about new kinds of relationships, virtual relationships. And then the second paragraph would be on whether or not that is a positive or negative development. And they say it's a positive development because it has encouraged tolerance of other cultures. So that's the focus that the question actually was asking for, new types of relationships that people make as a result of technology. And then is that a positive or negative development? Just one other thing in terms of task response. You've tried to do quite a lot in your essay, and you've done that by trying to mention more than one effect and also to say one, and you've done both sorry, you've also said how it's positive and how it's negative. And in order to fully develop each idea, what we strongly suggest is only mentioning one point for each question. So in that case, you would have mentioned one way that technology has affected the types of relationships, and you would have mentioned one reason why this was a positive or a negative development, not both. So you would have picked one and said, okay, it's positive and this is why, or it's negative and this is why. That would have given you space to be able to fully develop your answers. So if we have a look here, for instance, much of this paragraph is just commentary or background information. It doesn't necessarily support your idea. So if I look at this, your main idea is that it lessens the geographical distance. That's your main idea. So that should be reflected in your introduction, first of all. So your main ideas should both be in your introduction, clearly stated. That will help coherence and cohesion in your essay. So that should also have been your first sentence. Most of this information until there is background information. So you could simply have said that technology has lessened the geographical distance. Admittedly, it's not the answer to this question. So I'm giving you an example of how this paragraph should have been developed. But remember that in order to answer that question, it would have had a different focus altogether. Okay, so if that were your topic sentence, you would then explain how or why social networks and email and everything lessened the geographical distance and helped them to build more intimate bonds. How did it do that? That's what you would have explained. And then after that, you could have given it an example. So that's something else we recommend in order to develop your ideas. Have a clear example. So our recommended structure is topic sentence, explanation, example, and then move on to the next paragraph, topic explanation, sentence, explanation, example. And remember, only focusing on one point for each question here in a 2-question essay. Okay. So if we have a look at the sample answer, you can see here that's the topic sentence. And then this is the the explanation, and then this is the example here. And the same topic sentence, explanation, and example. Okay, so that's our recommendation. It's a simple way of creating a structure that will ensure that you answer the question as clearly as possible, and that makes sure that you don't try to do too much and end up not developing your ideas enough. It's very hard to get a high score for task achievement if you don't fully develop your ideas. Okay, also what that means is that you're looking at a 4-paragraph plan. And remember again, both main ideas should be mentioned in your introduction clearly and specifically, and again in your conclusion specifically. Okay, all right, then for vocabulary and grammar, you've used a lot of quite sophisticated language, but do be careful that you are not overdoing it. This is about clarity, this essay. And if you try to be overly complex, you're going to lose clarity. And that has happened in some places. There are also some incorrect word choices and a couple of grammar mistakes that I'd like to point out. So first of all, here in current times, you don't use the article the for this expression. And then you've tried to paraphrase this sentence here, but by paraphrasing it a little bit incorrectly, it's changed the focus of the question. So deal with doesn't just mean communicate or interact. It could mean problem solving or other kinds of things. So just be careful about your paraphrase of the question. Okay, relationships, not relations. And that's the correct word you're looking for. And a preposition here, a boon to industries. Okay, here you didn't need this, just a comma and then endowing. So before a participle clause, which is a clause to, using like an ing structure, use a comma. Okay. Here began to use would be better wording than got. Right, so here's a case where you used probably an overly complex word. Distance would have been much clearer. And then not shortened, but lessened. Actually, I'll accept shortened if you're saying distance. That'll be fine. Okay, you don't need by these communication aids that could have been taken out and also between themselves. So try to simplify as much as possible. Remember, clarity is king. You want your message to be 100% clear. And again, overly complex word for this kind of writing, use concept there instead. Okay, here is a sentence that grammatically needed some help. So you needed the relative pronoun that. The reason for that is because this is your subject, another relational change that transpired owing to technological advancements. So that or which. Okay, so you need that to act as a relative clause that describes the relational change. Okay, so again, another overly complex piece of vocabulary there, just vanity would be better. Palatial residence would be maybe more accurate in the context because you're speaking about their belongings or their homes. And then here, not the article the, but the article an, because there are many electronic media, so an electronic medium. Okay, the comma there would help to make things a bit clearer. It's not necessary, but it would help. Again, by dint of is probably overly formal and a little bit less common, so as a result of would be better. And hitherto is definitely very formal, so discussed above would be clearer. This sentence here was extremely long and quite complex, and I've taken out some in the middle, some information in the middle that would definitely help to make it clearer. I've also adapted it. So even though much as, this sentence with much as was correct, because of its length and complexity, it did affect coherence. So simplifying it using a simpler linking expression like even though. So even though better communication leads to stronger bonds and subsequently to cemented unity among people, comma, the rise in anxiety disorders is a societal bane. Okay, so that will help, but it is still a very long sentence, and that's something you want to be very careful about. You want your message to be 100% clear. And again, no article the here for anxiety disorders because you're speaking in general about all anxiety disorders, not anything specific. Okay, here just no need for any punctuation, no dashes needed there. Okay, and then this was also a bit unclear because of the structure that you chose to use, and also because there needed to be a little bit more explanation about why you were saying they had to be cautious. All right, okay. More appropriate expression for introducing your conclusion would be in conclusion. Technological developments would be a better collocation in the context of what you've been speaking about. And then if you say have much to commend, you would need an object, have much to commend them. But it'd be much clearer to just say can be commended. Okay, full stop at the end. All right, so in terms of grammar and vocabulary, some of the overly complex language and sentence structures are impacting coherence and cohesion. So even though some of them, or most of them, are correct in theory, in practice, it's not helping your message to be as clear as it could. So it is affecting coherence and cohesion, as I said. There are also a couple of grammar mistakes. Be careful about articles, for instance. And then with these more complex structures, it can lead to some mistakes. So here you needed the object them. Here you needed the relative clause. And here I think this structure would have been a lot clearer. So my advice for grammar and vocabulary, simplify. Remember that clarity is number one. So for grammar and vocabulary, I'm giving you a medium band 7 for both of them. And coherence and cohesion the same, a medium band 7. Task response is a high band 5. You have tried to develop your ideas, but they haven't been on the particular question that was asked, so that's impacted your task response. Also, I strongly recommend having a look again at the Writing Academy so you can see exactly how we recommend structuring your essay on a sentence by sentence level, how to develop those main body paragraphs. So it's mainly modules 4, 5, and 6, or 5, 6, and 7 that deal with introductions, main body paragraphs, and conclusions. And I would also recommend having a look at the two-part question or double question module as well, just in terms of how to answer that. Also, have a good read of the sample answer to see how you can how you could organize an answer to this kind of question. Also, just watch out, 326 words is almost at our maximum. So we would normally accept essays over 330 words. And the reason for that is because in an exam like this, you need to spend sufficient time on planning and checking. So let's say you spend 10 minutes on planning and 5 minutes on checking. That gives you 25 minutes to write. So if you are in the habit of writing things that are too long, you're going to end up taking away planning time or checking time, and both of those are very important. Okay, so overall then for this essay, it's a 6.5. So again, a high band 5 for task response, a medium band 7 for coherence and cohesion, vocabulary, and grammar. All had a medium band 7. Overall, a 6.5. So there's still some work to go to do before you reach the score that you're hoping for, Sudhir. So don't book your test until you're achieving the score that you want in both task 1 and task 2, and that you're achieving it consistently. And there are also some VIP resources here that can help you. And as I mentioned, the sample answer as well. All the best with your next submission, Sudhir.